My name is Ezra Blackwood. I'm 52, and 6 months ago my life was a mess, even before this woman showed up. I lived in a cramped studio over my electrical shop in Milwaukee, the kind where the smell of solder and burnt wire becomes part of your skin. The divorce took everything: my house, my savings, my sense that life could get better. The only thing that didn't leave was the smell of sawdust in my workshop. You can trust tools. They don't cheat, they don't lie, and they don't run off with yoga instructors. Then the lawyer called. "She left you property," he said, talking about my great-aunt Cordelia. Property in Willowbrook Bay. Lakefront. I thought it'd be a moldy trailer clinging to a swamp. Instead, I found myself macheting through a wall of overgrown sumac to reach a 3-story Victorian mansion covered in rot but still clinging to its old dignity. Raccoons had been living like royalty inside. The floors creaked like they were groaning for help. The smell of water damage followed me like a ghost. But beneath it all, I saw bones. Good bones. The kind you fight for. For 8 months, every spare dollar of the 85 grand Cordelia left me went into that house. I rewired everything. Patched holes, replaced beams. The locals called it a teardown. I called it a resurrection. People dropped by with coffee, neighbors honked from the road. The town paper ran a story titled, "Lakefront Mansion Rises from Ruin." For the first time since my marriage fell apart, I felt like I was building something instead of burying it. Then she arrived. Delilah Peaton Cross. Stepped out of her silver Lexus wearing weekend casual that probably cost more than my work truck. She smiled like she was posing for a brochure about ruling small towns. "What a charming restoration," she said, clutching that manila folder like it contained the 10 Commandments. "I'm Delilah, HOA president for Willowbrook Estates. Such a shame about the confusion with your property." I told her there was no HOA on my deed. I'd checked everything. Her smile tightened like she'd rehearsed that reaction. "Oh, sweetie, some old properties slipped through the cracks." Then she handed me the folder with the bill that could swallow a lifetime of paychecks. That night I spread every document from my closing across the kitchen table. Deed, insurance, survey maps, county records. Not a single mention of an HOA. But as I stood in the soft glow of the kitchen lights, surrounded by papers and peeling paint, I realized this wasn't about dues fees or some clerical mistake. This was about power. And me, the outsider, the newcomer who had the audacity to fix up something they all wrote off as dead, I had become her target. 3 days later, a certified letter showed up with so many stamps it looked like it had traveled the world. Inside, a formal demand to pay within 30 days, plus threats of liens and legal remedies deemed necessary. She even copied every neighbor within half a mile, and added a handwritten note suggesting I was struggling financially after my divorce. My middle name wasn't even in the public directory, but apparently my personal life was fair game. That was the moment I snapped from confused victim into guy who's going to figure this out. I drove straight to the county courthouse, a place that smells like old coffee and broken promises. 6 hours of digging later, eyes burning, running on vending machine caffeine, I found it. The original HOA documents from 1975. The neighborhood had been built around my mansion, not including it. My property had been deliberately excluded because it was too old, too historic, too unique. They legally couldn't force membership without written consent, which no one had ever gotten. I walked out of that courthouse feeling like David carrying the perfect stone for Goliath. But Delilah, she wasn't done. 2 weeks later, she held an emergency HOA meeting to talk about the rogue property owner threatening community standards. She made a whole PowerPoint presentation with photos of my house edited to look like a crack den. Outsiders like him, she said, hurt our property values. Outsiders. She said it like I'd tracked mud into their perfect little kingdom. And yeah, I'll admit this now. That night, sitting alone in my restored living room, surrounded by the smell of fresh paint and old wood, something inside me cracked. I wondered if I'd made a mistake buying this place. If maybe I didn't belong here. If maybe I was ruining something without meaning to. It was the first time I wanted to give up. Then Bertie showed up. Tiny woman. White hair. Eyes like frost-cut steel. "You're fighting the right fight, son," she said. That house has been fighting off the pitons since before you were born. She was the retired town librarian 43 years deep, and she knew every secret in that place. She became my partner, my strategist, my unexpected grandmother in the war I didn't ask for. But Delilah escalated, big time. One evening I came home to a notice taped to my door, unauthorized architectural improvements. The fine was $500 per day. Retroactive 8 months. She claimed I owed $122,000 for fixing my own house. She hired her late husband's law firm to send cease and desist letters thick enough to be used as body armor. She sent her nephew Todd, fake inspector real idiot, to inspect my electrical panel and claim non-existent violations. Then came the anonymous complaints to the city, noise violations, unlicensed business activity, unsafe wiring. City inspectors showed up daily exhausted by Delilah's nonsense, and every single one of them said the same thing: I exceeded code. Everything was legal. But the constant harassment, it messes with you, makes you question every decision, every screw you turn, every neighbor's stare. It wasn't until one inspector quietly told me 3 other families had been run out of the same community using the same strategy that the fog cleared. This wasn't about me. This was a pattern, a system. Then Delilah crossed a line I didn't know existed. I walked outside one morning and found my work truck destroyed tires, slashed windows cracked, and the word outsider spray painted across the side in screaming red. My truck, my livelihood, my identity. The smell of burnt rubber mixed with my own fury until I couldn't breathe. But thank God by then I'd installed cameras. The footage showed someone in dark clothes baseball cap low smashing the truck with methodical precision. And to anyone who'd seen Todd even once the build, the walk, it matched. I filed a report, lost contracts, watched my income evaporate. Meanwhile, Delilah spread rumors that working with me might put other homeowners in negative standing with their HOAs. That night, Bertie came over at dawn carrying a dusty box like it contained the secrets of the universe. And in a way, it did. Inside was a 1978 amendment signed by Delilah's father granting my property permanent exemption, forever exempt, bulletproof. There was even an affidavit from my great-aunt Cordelia exposing Harold Peaton's shady financial dealings from the 70s. Nothing illegal, but scandalous enough he'd done anything to keep her quiet. And suddenly I wasn't powerless. I had evidence. I had history. I had Bertie. So we built a team. Marcus, a young lawyer with fire in his eyes. Jenny, the local reporter who'd been sniffing around HOA abuse stories for months. 3 former victims ready to speak publicly. We gathered documents, photos, legal precedents, and we planned for the upcoming town hall, the battleground where Delilah expected to crush me. But I was done playing defense. The night before the meeting, she made her most desperate move yet. My cameras caught her and Todd attempting to break in through the back door flashlights cutting through the dark. Lockpicks in hand, searching for anything to use against me. It was the final nail in the coffin she'd been building for herself. Then came the night of the town hall. The room was packed, rows of folding chairs filled, people lining the walls. Cameras from Channel 8 set up in the back. The air thick like a storm about to break. Delilah arrived early, draped in a navy blazer that screamed, "I own this town." Her supporters, imported from other HOAs, clapped on cue as she clicked through slides meant to destroy me. She called me unsafe, untrustworthy, dangerous to the community. And the room hummed with tension as she spoke. Then, my turn. I stood, and every heartbeat sounded like a hammer. I told the story from the beginning, showed the photos before and after. People leaned in. Their eyes softened. They weren't seeing an outsider. They were seeing a man who rebuilt something with his bare hands. Then Bertie stepped forward with the archive box. I lifted the 1978 amendment high enough for the cameras. This document, I said, signed by Harold Peaton, grants my property permanent exemption from HOA authority. Delilah knew, or should have known, she never had any right over my home. The room froze. Delilah went pale. "That's impossible," she whispered, voice breaking. But Marcus rose, holding up official verifications from the county and state. Then the victims stood up. Todd Granger, Sarah Mitchell, Frank Kowalski. One by one, they described the same pattern of extortion threats, bogus fines, harassment campaigns. Same tactics, same pain, same president. And finally, I played the video of Delilah and Todd breaking into my home. The room erupted, gasps, whispers, outrage. Delilah tried to shout that it was fabricated, that I manipulated evidence, that I was dangerous, but it was too late. The sheriff's deputy stepped forward, taking notes. The vote happened fast. In a unanimous roar, the community removed Delilah from the HOA presidency and demanded a full investigation. Her reign ended there in front of the people she once controlled, her face crumbling as her power slipped through her fingers. I walked out of that meeting knowing nothing would ever be the same. And if there's one thing I learned through all of this, it's simple. Bullies only win when good people stay silent.